What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Plain Jane Cars, and this is a Plain Jane Cars podcast, part 2. We got Lissy and Hussain back in the building because I was so nervous on the first episode, and we got so wrapped up in our conversation. I looked at the clock. We have a clock here in the studio. I'm like, we're out of time. It's like 45 minutes, trying to keep the episodes a little brief, but had to have you guys back. So thank you for coming back.
Much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was awesome. Let me say this. I'm not into like analytics and stuff like that, but podcasts, just like YouTube, they show you analytics. They show you how episodes are doing, how the podcast is brand new, but it's no mistake that you guys are the most popular episode.
Oh, thank you so much.
By a lot. And I think all of them are performing well. I don't know what that means since I just started, but I was surprised by how many listeners there are. It's pretty cool to see, like, wow, people are listening. So we're doing something right.
Well, you're doing something right. You're doing a phenomenal job. So.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Charles.
A couple of the things that I wanted to touch on the first episode, we do a little rundown, obviously, so actually people know what we want to talk about, but we want to have a free-flowing conversation, was TX2K. You actually were in TX2K,
Correct.
And for those that don't know, I describe it as probably the most popular, the biggest street car event of the year, I would say, right?
Yeah, I guess a lot of people refer to it like, as like the WrestleMania of racing, like,
yes.
Like the Mecca of racing, basically. So it's just, it's where we get people from all over the country and, sometimes the world to come down and just, showcase their car and, how fast it is and the build that and the time they've invested into it. So
it's a big deal, in our community, it is a big deal, right?
I would say it's a pretty big deal. It's a passion. Everyone wants to come out. Everyone wants to perform. Everyone wants to be with their team and, be in that team environment. And just, it's, you get that 1 week where you just get to focus on what we all love to do. And just, it's all car-based. Like, it's nothing but car talk.
Nothing but car talk. And in the car talk, there is some trash talk, too.
Yeah, there's some smack talk, that's part of the game. It keeps things interesting, and that
does.
I believe it, comes with every sport. There has to be a little bit of a rivalry. There has to be a back and forth to keep things fresh. And,
to keep it interesting.
Yeah, keep it interesting. Keep it going, a little bit of memes. And
the memes are so to give everybody a tiny bit of background, there's, I would say, probably 5 really, really popular platforms that are involved with TX2K. GTR platform, really popular, and it's probably like a bunch of shops that build them, right? I'm not going to name them. The Lambo V10 platform, so the Huracans, they are very popular. And the R8, I'll say Lambo
R8, and, you have the Vipers.
The Vipers.
Those are usually the guys that, we're always in
kind
competition.
of battling it out, right?
It's like between us 3, so.
Oh, I love the trash talk. Some of the memes are hilarious. I think it was it 2 years ago? And there were some issues with the GTR platform. It seems like a lot of them weren't able to stay on track. A lot of them went into the wall, and some of the memes that UGR made were the best.
Yeah, and a lot of them weren't based off them, like going into the wall. It was
right. You don't want bad stuff to happen. No, nobody wishes that on anybody.
It was just more friendly banter, more just like it's like getting the point across without it's kind of keeping without crossing the line.
Yeah, it's trash talk.
Yeah, and,
I love to see it.
Keeping it funny at the same time, right? Because I think humor is important. Like, you have to keep it funny, or else it just becomes distasteful.
That's true. You don't want to cross the line, right? And I'm the same way. You want to be classy, but trash talk is okay. I think it's okay. So tell us, what was your first TX2K experience like?
Oh, my first TX2K experience was like a game changer for me. That was, I think, the point in my life where I grew a lot, because I just got my car back, I think in January or February. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, I had never experienced that kind of power before.
Right.
I was always, riding around on pump gas, which is just 1150, 1200. And, I was like, this feels good. I'm used to this,
It's fast, right?
It's fast. I feel like
1,000 horsepower is a lot. Yeah.
So, naturally when we get to the track, Kevin, Casey, they change the fuel and we add more power, and they turn us up. So I just for new kid on the block, had no idea like this is what like the process is, and just this is how it goes. So I'm like, yeah, I got this, so the first hit
I've been riding around with 1,100 horsepower. I can handle the extra power, right?
Then, when they did turn it up, obviously my distance, my timing, my alignment was off. So I went into the sand pit the first time. And luckily, it was it was the funniest thing, because it's like, and I don't mean to find humor in this, but of all the cars that went in there, I came out scratchless, just nothing at all except sand and pebbles.
So hold on, your first time down the track.
Yeah.
Let me recap. Totally makes sense to me. Recap. You get the car back from UGR.
Yeah.
Of course, it's on pump gas tune, right? But to get ready, and pump gas tune is just 93 octane guys at the pump, right? So to get the car ready, you show up on Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe, or something like that?
You know, we change the fuel out, we put in import, and, you know, the fuel changes, everything changes. I get turned up, and, you know, we have 4 notches of, you know, maps, basically. Right. So, you know, we turn it to map 4, and everything's like, hey, like, send it, like, ready to go.
So your first experience at the higher horsepower was on the track?
On the track, yeah.
That's actually kind of scary in a way to me, right? Yeah. Like, how do you get a feel? Like you say, like, even your reaction timing for like braking zones and like, what do I do? How did you got to give in your mind, like, honestly, I've been on a track before in a much slower car, right? I've been at the track. Should I say I have driven fast on the street legally, but at the track, it's a different feeling, right? Like, especially, I've never roll raced at the track, but for like dig racing or drag racing, you get this sudden rush of adrenaline, like as you're pulling up, like my heart's beating so fast, it's beating slow.
Yeah,
right?
The nerves are
pounding,
there, for sure,
right?
You know? The nerves are there, but I think once you get past the initial like process of it and you get your footing on like how things should be,
right?
You feel a lot better, you know, and then you're more it's just something you perform. It's something it's just very natural after that, you know. You just know your timing.
You're just a naturally calm person. Lissy, how would you feel? 1,500 horsepower, first time on the track, and you're putting it to the floor. Like,
I'd be full panic. Like
100%.
Like
I would think I was 1350 at that time. My first time. Yeah,
even still.
What year was that?
That was 2019. No, that was 2020. That was COVID year.
Yeah, COVID. I remember 2020. Yeah. Because I came that year. I would be in full blown sheer. I would need a pill before I do that, like just to be able to perform.
You know what happened was, you know, we always get like time to practice, like, you know, testing.
Okay.
And I think just throughout the day there were a lot of delays that caused us to like go straight into qualifying. So like I never got that practice run. Like it was just like, hey, like this is it. This is your moment.
It's like real time.
Like, oh God, like, you know, like I need like just 1 or 2 runs to kind of like, you know,
get the feel.
Hey, where do I brake? How, like, you know, what's my timing? Like, how hard do I slam? I knew nothing.
So in roll racing, real quick, I want to get deeper into your brain on how that experience was between sandpit the next run, right? Because it's not an inexpensive car, it's stock,
right?
And then you've invested into the car. Almost specifically for this event. I mean, I'm sure you just want to have the car, but it's like, it's cool because I think one of your goals was to have a car in TX2K, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I want to get into that. Like, what happens mentally when you're like, this is a special edition Huracan Performante that I just invested this amount of money into, and it's in the sand pit. But before that, how does roll racing work specifically? Because I know there's like a lead car and there's like a pace car. You go at a certain mile an hour and you get a green light when you go, right?
Yeah, so essentially what it is the left lane always paces or sets the pace, and then the right lane follows, and then, you know, you guys are just at 60, 65 essentially.
Okay.
And then, you know, the light turns green and you just send it.
So are you looking for the light? Like, what is your trigger to say, go? Right? Because I understand the whole pacing thing. Like, you want to make sure you guys are pretty much door to door essentially, right? But what's your trigger to say, all right, hit it?
For me, honestly, like, I feel like that causes a little bit of a slight delay when you're kind of looking for something. Okay. So for me, I just stay at, you know, I'm focused on me. Like, when I start, like, you know, when the guy tells us to start, like, you know, get in the lanes and go. For me, I just focus on my speed. I focus on myself. And then as soon as that light, like, turns green, like, I'm just ready to go. My job is, like, hey, I need to be where I need to be, like, that 60, 63 mark. I'm going to sit there. That light turns green. I'm sending it. If it doesn't, hey, we're rerunning, you know? So.
Okay, one more question before we get into the runs between sandpit next run.
Right.
How do you keep it at 60 to 63 miles? My foot would be shaking. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about how my nerves would be. Like, how do you
seat time, and then, you know, like, it just becomes normal, right? Like, so for me, it's like I'm not really trying to do it. I just do it. Like, it's just so.
It feels natural.
Yeah,
to you.
It's just so second nature that, you know.
So did you do some practicing, like, on the road to kind of feel 63? What gear am I going to be in? When am I going to shift?
More so the feeling and the butterflies, like, you know, to always get those out because I don't want to have those at the track. So, like, you know, a lot of the times I'll just fill 109 in the car, and then I'll go on 90. So 90 is like just basically a 4-lane stretched out road that goes like straight for 1.3 miles.
Yes.
So, you know, I'll just, you know, get to 60 and then just send it there, and then I'll kind of adjust to like what that feeling and that like the pressure feels like. So then I'm like, all right, like.
I'm ready.
You know, it just feels like, you know, once I got past like that feeling and I know what the feeling is going to entail, then I know that, hey, once I even go faster, like I'm good. Like I just the feeling. I know the feeling.
I may be projecting my feelings. I overthink everything, and I would want to know every little, you know what I mean? Like, how do you, because some cars I know they have like rolling anti-lag, because you can kind of hear, like some cars, they do like the stutter, they're retarding the timing as they go up to the line. Like having to do all that, make sure you're pacing with the person next to you, hitting your mark on the right time. Like I would think that
there's
would
a
take
lot going
of
on
practice.
in that moment, right? So like there's a lot going on in just like that 30-second window from like the guy saying go to pacing to the green light to stopping, braking. And,
when do you, you know what I mean? Like, because do you know how long you have to brake?
I mean, usually I don't go by distance. I just go by the flag, right? So, like, what I like to do when I get there is, like, I'll just walk the track. Like, I'll physically walk the track and, like, get an idea for, like, where the flag is and where the green light is. So, like, as I'm like, I know, you know? Like, I've walked it. So, like, I just have that, like, feel of, like, okay, now I need a break. Like, this is how much time I have.
So, last question. Because I do want to get back, but I've been wanting to ask Hussain these questions on camera for a while, and I didn't want to ask him before, so I wanted to hear these responses with our listeners. Do you stand on the brake? Like what? Because I know that sounds probably hyper specific, but how do you brake? Because you're doing 180 miles an hour, you can see the sand pit from where you stop, right? I mean, it's visible.
So like 3 years ago, it was different, right? So like 3 years ago. I mean, it's also situational. I feel like that could have been avoided 3 years ago had I had more experience, like in terms of like just time, you know, like had I had a practice run or two to kind of get a feel.
Like feel it out. Yeah, feel out what,
yeah. I just, you know, like my first run was like my full send run. And I just, you know, like there wasn't enough time for me to like understand what was going on. Yeah. And then, you know, obviously like the years after that, like it was casual.
Well, you got it now, right? It's just...
so it's like the worst case scenario was the best case scenario because
that's true. I see what you're saying there. I see what you're saying there. Like, because now you like, I know what that is. Yeah. And I know how to not do that. Yeah. Right.
And I know it's like, well, the worst case, well, guess what? It already happened.
Yeah.
I've been there. Like,
so, okay, let's go to it. So in between that first run, sandpit, I know you have to be, I'm projecting again. Yeah. My mind would be, am I even going to go back? Right? Like, as they jack my car up, I'm imagining, right? You cut me off when I'm telling a lie. They're cleaning out all of these pebbles and sand, and I mean, you're checking through everything. Right. I'm mentally thinking, am I actually going to take my $350,000, $400,000 car back out there?
No. Right? Later that night, I just went to a car show. And then I just like
walked it off.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to the track, I mean, it does affect your confidence a little bit, you know, because it's like, what if I do this again? Yeah. What if, like, you know, I just run it back? Because I still never essentially figured out what my mistake was, you know, because I never got to actually like do it the right way to actually know, right?
Right.
So, I sat out that time, and then I think I don't remember who won that year. Anyways, it was 2020. And I think our main cars were down with an issue, the Drag 965 cars.
Yes.
But then I know we came back in 21. Was it 21 or 22? I don't remember. And
21 and 22, I think y'all crushed everybody. Those 2 years were good years, if I remember correctly.
And I mean, this year is still young, so, you know.
That's true.
There's still a lot to happen.
Still early. Yeah. It's still early.
There's still a lot happening.
So will you do it? Will you continue to do TX2K now that it's moving up to Dallas? I think Texas Motorplex is what it's called.
Yeah, I think it's only 3 hours away, so the distance isn't too bad. So it's very feasible for me to still get out there with a trailer and just grab a hotel there and, you know, still be able to do that.
Do your thing.
Yeah, do your
That's
thing.
super cool, man. I in my brain, I still have to. I like driving fast. I have experience driving fast, and we're going to get some story time with Lissy because Lissy likes to drive fast too. We all do, I think. You like that exhilarating experience, but driving that fast, seeing those guys do over 200 miles an hour in such a short, I mean, it's a little bit over a quarter of a mile or whatever, right? It's not quite a half mile, I don't think.
No.
That to me,
passenger, while he, like, because I've ridden once in his car in the perf, I was like gripping onto the side.
How does it feel? I've never experienced that. I'm not gonna lie. I've never.
So scary because, like, obviously I like to be in control. Like, if I'm
100%,
driving, like, it's
at least I got the steering wheel in my hand.
As a passenger, I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen. Like, I trust him, but I'm also like, I don't trust the other drivers.
No,
you don't know if they're gonna like go in your lane. And he like pulled 200, and I'm just like, heart's beating so fast. I'm like, when is it gonna end?
I've never done 200 miles an hour.
It feels like a roller coaster. It's.
That's probably an apt way to describe. I could imagine that.
Yeah. It's like fun, but also very scary.
Scary. That stomach, that gut feel. Yeah.
I'm like, can I get out of the car yet?
I think that feeling is like you get adjusted to that feeling, right? And that's what drives you to more. So like the butterfly she's talking about, I did get those.
Yeah.
Like 3 years ago.
I think it was more than butterflies, but
right. You were feeling something else.
Yeah, so it's like, you just become very comfortable with it, right? And then you just know, like, I got this.
I can understand that. Even, divided by 5, right? Every car I've driven, I've gotten progressively faster cars and modded them to be faster. And you do start to get it gets normalized pretty quickly. I took a friend out that never rode in my M4, and I never even drive anymore. It just sits. But it's actually quick for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
I took it out. It's, I haven't driven. Look, so it warms up, and I did like a 60 roll in 3rd gear. And she was like, let me out of this thing. Because it was, some PS4s that got squirrely. She's like, your car breaks loose at 60 miles an hour. Like, to her, I was like, yeah, I guess to a layman that is exciting. But to me, I'm used to it, right? You kind of get used to it. Like, oh, yeah. She's like, but we were doing 60 and you spun your wheels. And I was like, yeah, it's terrible. I need to put a tire on it, So I can get what you're saying, right? You just get used to it. I was waiting for it to get squirrely and then you counter steer. She's like, I've never been in a car that spun wheels at 60 miles an hour. I was like, well, I got some friends that will blow your mind, this junk I got. Anyway. We didn't talk about your vision board. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on about TX2K and that whole experience?
No, I just think it was a good year. It's still a great event. We're excited for next year, and I think we have a lot of things planned that will be revealed soon. So.
Nice. So let me ask you this before we move on. What is the fastest mile an hour you've done on track?
Oh, on track, man. Don't gonna lie to you. I think 192. Was that the most Texas 2K?
That's
or 191.8.
Whatever, right? Yeah. That's to me. That is insane.
Yeah, you have Kevin, Casey, Tag, Seafish, all those guys that just casually break, 220.
220. Yeah. I saw a car. I think it was last year. The car the STO, the yellow STO.
Yeah, the yellow STO.
226, I think?
233 is what Casey did last year.
To me, I hope listeners understand. 200 miles an hour is fast anyway,
that
right?
reminds me. So I remember my first 2K ever. Kevin pulls out the red drag car, the Drag 965 red Huracan, and it's a warm-up pass, right? So he's doing a warm-up, and he breaks the record. He goes 236 in his warm-up pass.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And this drag Huracan does wheelies, too. It has the ability to pull the front wheels off the ground.
That was just crazy because, I remember that was my first event, my first time being there.
Yeah.
And, obviously I didn't know anyone on the team then, so I was...
Right. You just familiarizing yourself with who is underground racing.
So... Kevin pulls out. He's like, yeah, I'm going to do a warm-up pass. And then just, casually, all I hear is on the
warm-up.
Okay, the world record. And it's like, that was his warm-up. Nice.
It's impressive, man.
It was, it still is very impressive.
It is.
Every now and then I find myself going back to that reel and just, reposting it because I'm just like, man, that's crazy.
That is crazy. And I keep trying to explain this because there's some non-car people that listen to the podcast, obviously, and for anybody, 100 miles an hour is fast, right? It just is, right? In real life, if I can't remember I have read one time, how much distance you cover, even at 65 miles an hour in so many seconds. 200 miles an hour, and doing it from a roll, but doing it over less than a half mile. If you've never seen this, go to YouTube and look up TX2K. And look at these guys. In person, it's breathtaking. It's like, how in the world, especially if you are down track, in the stands. I did it, very first time I went because I wanted my kids to see, do you understand how fast these cars are going? And just seeing you guys drive by at that speed, it's like, they're nuts.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool sight to see. It's an experience for sure.
Totally.
You have to be there. You have to hear it, to feel it, see it.
Smell it, all that.
The gas, you definitely smell it.
Yeah, it's a good experience, man. And we wanted to touch on your vision board, too. We kind of covered TX2K. This is some leftovers from the last episode. We did not discuss what's on your vision board.
Right now on the vision board, man, it's just mainly business, thinking about expansion, real estate development projects, really focusing on that in terms of work. And then I think in terms of vehicles, I'm not looking for anything right now. Satisfied. But I think personally for me, the next 2 projects on my mind that I would need to accomplish, obviously real estate, and my goals being one of them. The design part, I'd like to start eventually looking for a piece of land for my house. And then third, I would say I would focus in on creating that soulmate energy that we talked about, and just kind of pursuing that and making that happen this year.
Dope. Our off-camera conversations are probably more interesting than our on-camera conversations, and I'm not going to dive into that. But we enjoy, I try to, if you know me, I think the people that probably listen to me know me a little bit. If you got to spend time around me, I try to be as real, as authentic as I am. I don't let a lot of people in because it's just zero interest to me to tell everybody my business. But I think it's interesting to share your story with people, especially when they're willing to listen to it and, they're sharing with you. And we've had some pretty good conversations, I would say.
Absolutely.
About creating that good energy, right? That good vibe. Like what's next in life for us beyond just cars. Even though we love cars. We want to talk about what's next and how we're going to reach those goals too, right? Lissy?
Vision board? I'd say definitely taking my business to the next level.
For sure.
Which has already been in the works. It's insane how much growth we've had in the past year. Definitely want to get into more real estate.
Yes.
And car goals, I think everyone kind of knows, is definitely Porsche on my list.
Yes.
Trying to be a Porsche girl. And like Hussain said, just finding a soulmate and meeting my person.
I love it. And that's what we want to talk about. Hopefully the listeners appreciate that. I love cars, and I've gotten advice from people who say, man, keep doing the car stuff. But I'm just not just a car person, right? I love cars, but there's so much more to life,
For
right?
sure.
And, as you meet people, we talked about this in our last episode, as you meet people, especially in the car world, for whatever reason, I think you attract the energy you put out. And I think you keep putting out good and positive energy. You learn more about those people that you're attracted to and that's attracted to you. So I'm glad you guys were willing to share what's on your vision boards. One of the things I wanted to talk about too, interestingly enough, as a product of our last episode, I got a few questions, right? People reaching out, people that I know really well and some that I don't know, which I think was cool too, asking, so what do they do for a living? I think that's an interesting question, right? There were people saying, oh, they're so humble, they're so nice, but what do they do for a living? How do they both? I don't like answering that question because people ask me that, right? They say, well, what do you do, right? And I think it's an implication on you seem to be successful, you seem to have money, you got stuff, so how'd you get it? And I like to say, instead of me telling you what I do, how about I tell you the things that I don't do? How about I tell you the things that I avoid doing? Because I think that's some things that most successful people have in common, because what successful people do, there is a range of things. They're all different. I think people that are successful can do anything, generally speaking, right? When you look at them, they have it, whatever it is. But if you ask them, what are some of the things you avoid? I think you will find more commonalities in that bucket than you would in the what do you do bucket, because there's a lot of different ways to make money. But there's probably fewer ways to lose it. And they're very common. They're very, very common. So what are some habits or things that you guys avoid? If you could share it with the people that want to know, how did you wind up with the supercar collection you did? How do you wind up with the things that you have, the cars that you've been able to flip out of every year and a half? What is one or two things that you probably don't do?
I'd say avoiding comparing my success or my path and timeline to others. An example would be so-and-so just got this car, they have this much money, but you're not sad about it. You're happy for them.
Oh, for sure.
And you're not going to compare oh man, what I don't have to what they have. Don't compare yourself. Also dwelling in negative situations. It's not always going to be rainbows and sunshine, and there's going to be negative moments in life. But I mean, you can't just dwell on the negative. You have to think positively, optimistic, all right, it's going to get better. Good is on the way.
Yeah.
I mean, what else?
Those are two gems, in my opinion.
Those are solid.
Not people. If you're listening, and there's some successful people that's listening to this, so they're probably saying, "Yeah, give a thumbs up for sure." Those of you that wonder, yes, don't compare yourself to anybody, especially somebody's journey. I think that definitely happens. It definitely happens. I know in the car community, because we're around people that are successful, and you're like, "How in the world are they doing this, and this?" Mm-hmm. Right? I think what you should do is exactly what you said, cheer them on. It's awesome to see somebody pop up. I love it. I love it. But it doesn't demotivate me and it doesn't motivate me either. I'm just happy for him, right? Because my path is my path, which is completely different and okay. So there's no need to compare yourself. And dwelling in negativity. Mm-hmm. I want you to talk, Hussain. I don't want to talk too much, but I'm going to touch negativity just for a second. There's nothing that ever came good out of dwelling in negativity. What does that mean? If you have emotions that aren't helping you get towards your goal, they aren't serving you. So you should avoid those emotions. Be real about them, figure out what's causing them, and move through it because it's not going to help you. So 2 wonderful gems. Don't compare yourself to people. Don't dwell in negativity. Those things don't serve. So successful people, that's what we're talking about, what they don't do. Those are 2 things that they don't do.
Also, don't surround yourself with negative people and energy as well. Like, don't be around people who are going to bring you down.
Let me ask you a question, right? Because I agree with that. How do you know that you're around negative people? Like, how could you figure that out?
Well, I think I have a pretty good read on people, but I mean, actions also just speak louder than words.
Sure.
So.
Because I've wondered that, because nobody, a reason why I asked that, I don't think many people would self-identify as negative. You know, most people wouldn't say, oh yeah, I'm negative. I'm a Debbie Downer, right? It's just not, so how do you always wonder, like, how do I know I'm around somebody? Like, I just try to be aware, obviously, but just trying to hear your perspective on, like, I agree to tell somebody, hey, successful people don't surround themselves with negative people, but how do you know you're surrounded by negative people, right? I think that's a little bit, listeners, I don't know how to answer that. I think you can definitely sense it. I know I can.
Feeling, you know, I think it's a feeling. You just, it's something that just shows itself, and you have to be aware to, you know, open enough to kind of see what it really is versus what you think it is, right?
And then respond to it, right?
You know, because, you know, everyone loves to talk and everyone says a lot of things, but then, you know, it just shows up different. Like, you can't, you know, that
you
that
can
just
spot a
doesn't-
fake
yeah,
person.
You can spot that very easily. And, you know, it comes with
Say it
time,
louder
too,
for the
you
people
know?
in the
So, it comes with time.
It does. It
comes
does.
with time.
Life
And you just
experience
observe,
and time.
Right? You just
That's
observe and you're like, okay, so that's how it is.
On the episode we did a couple weeks ago, I said I want to have a clout chaser on here. I want to have a negative person. I really do, because I want.
We can name a few for you.
I actually figured out who you were talking about that last podcast. It's so funny. Once I get more popular, I am going to name names, because everybody knows this is just for fun anyway. But I think that'll make it more entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely spice things up, right? Like, you know,
For sure.
trash talk.
For sure, because I think there's. What about you, Hussain? Thank you for sharing that, Lissy. I think those are 2 wonderful gems.
I think I would have to piggyback off of what Lissy said a little bit about staying away from negative people. I mean, you know, wealth is wealth, but character is character. You know, so there's a lot of people that don't have anything, but I would be more than happy to stand next to them and be like, that's my guy.
100%.
And then there's a lot of guys with everything, and I'm like, keep that guy away from me, because I'm not going, you know? Like, so to me, it's like, I think this concept of money, wealth. So I think for me personally, I like to stay away from people where money plays a big, vital role in their life. And if it's all about money, then I'm not your guy. Like,
where they identify themselves through what they have, right?
Yeah, and you know, if you kind of keep telling me like, you got this, you got that, it's like, great, me too, but I just don't care.
Who are you trying to convince?
Yeah,
that's how I feel when I'm around that energy. Like, okay.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's just certain aspects of people that you can't change, right? Like me, I mean, I always wear free stuff, right? Like, you know,
why wouldn't you?
My man AZ Cycle Parts, plug up to him, you know, like he gave me a couple shirts. At
Another
Texas
gym.
PK.
Another gym. You want to know what Hussain doesn't do? He doesn't waste money on designer clothes.
But I will spend money on a twin turbo system.
Of course.
85,
you got to spend money on something.
But, you know, you follow your passion, right? You
That's
always
right.
follow your passion, and you know that's just the bottom line, right? So
maybe let me say this a different way. Let me distill this. Let me say it a different way, because probably what I said was not the right way to say it. I would say, if I was distilling what you said, Hussain is saying, spend your money on the things that you're passionate about, but do it for you.
Yeah.
Don't spend money in an effort to impress others, right? Because that doesn't bring any value to you. You may feel like it does, but it doesn't, because people really actually don't care. People really. So if you're doing it to get people to care, you're going to be disappointed in most cases.
Because no one actually cares. No,
They don't
I mean,
care.
and that's the thing, right? So it's like some people's passion might be jewelry. They just like jewelry. Some
And there's
people
nothing
like
wrong with
shoes,
that.
and there's nothing wrong with it.
These are things that
But
I like.
if you're
jewelry
doing
and
it to
shoes.
kind of come to me and tell me like, hey, bro, like I got this, I'm just going to be like, all right, like.
Yeah, trying to flaunt it, be
Yeah,
a try hard
yeah,
is like
it's just not
not
it's
it.
just-
It's not cool.
It's not cool, but it's also just like at the end of the day, I mean, because then I'm creating a perception of you in my mind, right? And
Yes.
like, and my perception is going to stick, because then I'm going to be
Yes.
like, yeah, that's that guy that, you know, constantly thinks like, you know, he has
Yeah.
that. And then it's just like, yeah, and it's like, I'm not going to your party or whatever. Like,
No. There's a few things I wrote down. I want you to think of maybe one or two others. I cut you off, someone to get your thoughts. And these are things that I kind of shared with like corporate, like people that were looking for mentorship. They're like, you know, how did you get to where you are? I would just tell them the truth. I think like my truth, I could be dead wrong. But one of the things a lot of people, I think that successful people avoid, the things I've learned from people I watch and mentored me, is they don't hate change.
no.
They embrace it. Change is actually good in a lot of ways, and they look for the positivity in that change, right? It's kind of like I traded for a little while, and it's like volatility, right? Traders do not like a market that's flat because you can't create value in a flat market. You actually want you would think traders only want the price to go up. No, they want it to go down too, right? Volatility is good, and I think that is a microcosm or an example for life. Like I always say it's okay to be down. It's not okay to stay down, because you find out about yourself when you're down, right? So those downs, that volatility in your life is actually good for you. You'll hear older people say it builds character, and I think there's truth in that.
It helps you fix a problem, right? Because it points out the problem to fix the problem.
100%. I think those things are good for you. Another thing that I like is I can't say all successful people this way, but I think there's some commonalities in people I've dealt with, is they don't expect quick success. They'll make it look like they got there quickly and easily. I notice like most successful people kind of do it without a lot of sweat externally, right? They're kind of just good at it, and it may be natural. But everybody I've been around have really, they won't say I got it out the mud, but they'll grind. And they know where they're going. They may not know when they're going to get there, right? But they know where they're going, and they stay on that path until they get there. And they don't expect it to happen overnight. I think some of the people I've been mentored, they just so happen to be younger people. They're like, so you've been working here for how long? Or you've been doing this for how long? I'm like, yeah, it's going to take time. Success
a lot
takes
of patience.
Time. Yeah.
But going back to the change, I heard my dad recently say to someone else, you know, if you're staying the same and you're not growing or changing, then you're basically dying. Ooh. And that stuck with me. I was like, wow.
That's
like, I didn't
true,
think
though.
of it that way. You know?
Yeah, I reference that a lot. Like,
yeah, you got to grow. I love that. Last one I'll touch on is, it's oversaid, you know, learn from your mistakes, but try not to make the same mistake multiple times. One of the things I noticed, like just I can speak corporately, you guys can speak more entrepreneurially. People will keep doing the same thing and try to say, well, everybody else is the idiot. It's like, nah, I'm not, you know, you got to change some stuff to get some different results, right? So try not to, and I try to tell people, learn about yourself, right? Learn about what some of your weaknesses are and what your strengths are, and try to protect yourself from your weaknesses, and don't over rely on your strengths, right? So you got to avoid continually stepping in the same potholes. It's okay to step in new potholes, because we said it's okay to be low and learn. But you'll notice successful people, when they see something going wrong, they will adjust, and pretty quickly. I mean, some people may say they over adjust, like they will make sure that doesn't happen again, right? So yeah, be conscious of that kind of stuff. That's
right. But I also think it's like personal, right, to an extent, because it's like, I think that goes into my second thing of like what I don't do, and that's like keep people around that are constant just yes man, hype man, you know, like because I don't like that. Like I just, you know, I mean, the last thing I want is someone constantly telling me, oh, you're killing it. Right. It's like respectfully, I don't care. Like I don't care to hear that.
Can't
you know?
be
like,
right.
No. And so I think constructive criticism is good, and I appreciate that, right? So it's like, but you can only do that with, you know, once you have a certain relationship, a bond with that person where they know, like, when you're killing it, they tell you, hey, you're killing it, and it means a lot. And then when there's times of like, hey, like, look, like, when you talk, like, this needs to be focused on, like, you need to kind of put your mind to it. And it's like, okay, like, you know, so it's nice to kind of get that reality check, but then also, you know, the hype is there too. So it's like a balance of both. And I like that, you know, and I get that from, you know, all my close circle, you know, that's what, like, constantly constructive criticism between me and Lissy, like, hey, you know, the days that go great, hey, awesome. And the days that aren't going so great, it's like, okay, well, how do you change it, and how do you adapt to what it is right now, and what needs to be done because something isn't happening? So it's like, hey, like, take a look back, you know? So in that sense, I would say we are our own worst bullies.
Yo, for sure. That's another thing. So you dropped 2 gems. I agree with that. Being your own worst critic. People say that and it's cliche. All right, I'm my own worst critic. I would be surprised if the people that say that really knows what that means.
Yeah.
To really be critical of self, to really understand, because you got to know who you are, right? The easiest person to fool into talking to anything is yourself. And if you're aware of that, then you can start to be your own worst critic. And one of the things, I beat up on myself. And I said this, I think, in a podcast with my daughter. Hearing my own voice helped me, right? Like doing content creation, like watching yourself is so weird. Hearing your own voice to me is so weird. I'm like, God, this is crazy, especially when I was editing. But the point of me saying it was like, I never heard that I had a lisp. Grown man, I was like, I have a lisp? It was so funny to me. And I said this to a couple of people, like, you're just realizing this? I'm like, no, I've never listened to myself. Why would I know that I have a lisp?
Yeah.
You guys didn't tell me? They're like, well, no, yeah, you have a lisp. I'm like, wow. And I have an accent. I swear I didn't have an accent. So what I'm saying is the first level of self-awareness, we're supposed to be talking about cars, but I'm interested in this stuff too. First level of self-awareness is realizing that you can't really be aware of self because you can't see yourself. That's where you start. And then you can start to learn, well, how can I see myself? Like, what are some tools that are available to me? And one of them is surrounding yourself with honest people that are willing to tell you uncomfortable truths.
Yeah, tell you the truth, and they speak, the fact, but then they're also, it's like a balance of both, right?
You said constructive, which is the word, constructive criticism, criticizing for the purpose of building another.
Yeah, because it's just like, I'm not going to point out something every day just to be constructive, right? It's
no.
Like, things are going well.
It's like, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Chill.
Things are flowing well, but then, it's like, if I notice like a dip in something in any part, it's like, hey, let's see if there's a recovery within 2-3 days. Let's be patient. And if like on the 3rd day, the problem hasn't been addressed, then it's like, hey, dude, like,
gotta do something.
Yeah.
You gotta do something.
So it's like, but you always want to give someone like their time to kind of like, hey, give them their own patience to address it and see like, hey, how are they changing it? How are they fixing it? Right.
Sure.
Because, then you don't want to strip away the ability. Well, my friends haven't said anything, so everything must be good. It's like, no, it's like, that's just not always the case. You got to do some self-checking, self-awareness.
It's true.
And, your circle will always be there to remind you like, hey, this happened, or like, so that's a good foundation to have. But then at the end of the day, it's you versus you. Right.
Oh, I love that. Successful people fail, everybody, or whatever you define as successful people. Is the thing that makes them different, and the thing that makes them successful is what they do with that failure. This is my opinion. This is my opinion. I'm saying it like it's a fact. But yes, be willing to learn.
And
and stop asking, what do people do? I'm going to have guests on that are very successful and have a lot of things. Don't ask me what they do.
No, but like, look here, I've said this multiple times. I've said this multiple times and I still say it, and it's something I still do myself every now and then.
Okay.
And it's just, everyone asks like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? It's like, guys, like there's a million videos on YouTube. Literally talking about like everything. So it's like,
go to YouTube University.
Go to YouTube, sit there, watch, instead of watching that music video or whatever the hell you're doing. Yeah. Watch through some of those videos, like 20 of them. You'll figure out who like resonates with you in terms of like the speech. You're like, man, this guy makes sense to me. It makes me feel good. Like I'm connecting.
Right.
You start watching a couple more. You get an idea. You level up. You go to the next guy. You go to the next guy, and you start getting. It's like a wealth of information.
There is.
But it's just until they see something physical and tangible. Like until they see a plane, I'll listen to that guy. It's like, but why does it take that? It's like there's a lot of information out there from people that are just have information.
Yes.
And there's people that have information and there's people that apply that information, right?
Yes.
So there's a balance of both. Like information is great, but what are you doing with it?
What are you doing with it?
Exactly. So
I
it's
say
like,
that all the time.
I could tell you the blueprint, but what are you going to do with it?
Stop asking people what they do.
But I mean, it's fun.
That's all I'm saying.
You could always ask that question, and
it's
people respond accordingly because I love that question because I'm a Call of Duty pro. I have an OnlyFans. I have everything, in that world. But like, it's just, it serves no purpose because then it's like, well, what did you do? And it's like, I went on YouTube. I literally went through all these videos. I literally taught myself. I literally saw the mental shift happen. I taught myself the difference in mentality. I taught myself all these things. I taught myself the importance of character over wealth and what money actually means. And I'm like, I sat there and I had to learn it. And it's like, it's all there. It's still there. And there's people making newer videos every day.
Yes.
So it's like, just, kind of modify your search and you'll find what you're looking for.
Yeah. You can be entertained in finding out how to be successful.
Yes.
You can find entertainment in that, which I like. And I like hear different thoughts and opinions and approaches just to life in general, especially when I'm thinking of, more secularly stuff like work and entrepreneurial stuff. Even if you're a corporate, right, you work, you collect a paycheck from somebody. There's ways to achieve success in that. And there's videos out there, people will teach you that. And I think it's like a recipe, right? If you follow the recipe, generally speaking, you're going to wind up with the result, right? Like if you're baking a cake, a pound cake, follow the rest. I think those rules apply. That's why I wanted to focus on, and you guys are going to hear this as a segment reoccurring, on give me one or two things that you don't do, right? How did you, and it's people that I think that are successful, but we'll do it for everybody. Like, give me a couple things that you didn't do that got you to where you are today. And I think that's valuable to anybody listening.
Yeah, and I think to further clarify on that YouTube thing, it's like, yeah, obviously there's a wealth of information, but that doesn't mean go and listen to everybody, right? Because a lot of those guys are just there to kind of talk and, you're looking for that subscriber count.
Oh, yeah.
But there is a great wealth of information out there, right? And you don't have to subscribe to some program or a club to like, hey, no, it's like, it's all there, man. It comes from you.
100%.
So 100%. It's like, don't fall for those, those day traders and all these dorky guys, man. Like, oh, God.
Shots
that's just
fired.
so, like...
Shots fired.
It's just you see it so often. Because
Me and Hussain and Lissy, we think alike. We have some similar opinions on that.
It's absurd because it's like stuff. You'll be sitting there and they'll say, like, hey, you want to make money? You want to make money? And, like, I can show you what you do with your money. And it's like, what are you talking about, bro? Like what? Like, you have no idea what you're saying. Like, and that's the thing, because everyone posts the W, but they won't talk about the L, and it's all good. Man. But, it's at the same time, it's like, come on, man, keep it 100, right? Because, like, I know, and we all know, but, like, I want you to say it.
Yeah, please do. I think the L's are interesting. I don't necessarily talk. We're probably going on too long on this topic. I love talking about this stuff just as much as I love talking about cars, because I think life and the way people make decisions are interesting. But, yeah, realize that if a person is showing you 100% of the time they are winning, it's a 100% lie.
Yeah,
right. We all know that, but I think we all are susceptible to what we see, right? You seeing is believing, so you say like, man, they must be doing something right, and like you don't know. I laughed at a guy, and we talked about this, I think, on the last podcast. Maybe we did. Oh, we talked about it at dinner. It was a guy that had a lot of things, and he was in a lot of debt. It's like, if you're okay and you can tolerate that, sure, do it, right? And there's other people who would say, I'd rather manage my money a different way, right? Like, instead of having a whole bunch of different stuff with all co-collateralized and a lot of loans, I'd rather do one or two things. There's a lot of different ways to manage life. I'm like, I don't have the tolerance to be in the level of debt that he was, right? But he did. He was fine with it. He's like, it doesn't bother me at all. I just make the payments. I'm like, oh my God. And it's a guy I like too. He's like, no, I'll finance it all and just make payments. I'm like, God, that would drive me crazy.
And I think a lot of it is instant gratification, though, too, Charles. People just see, like, it's like I have what I have now, but 10 years ago I didn't. It was the M3 100%. And the CLS, right? So it's 100%. Like I've been in this game 10 years now, nearly like to get to where I am now. So it's like, but they just look at right now.
Right now. It's like, well, how do I get here? It's like, well, let's start where I started.
There's like this big chunk of story missing from this, like, but it's all good. Because at the end of the day, it goes back to that thing where it's like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. One of the things I enjoyed in our last podcast, got a lot of feedback on, was your story about your dad.
Oh, gosh.
Story
really?
time. I said, we're going to have to do a story time with Lissy on the regular. It was hilarious, bro. I watched it back myself, made a short out of it. I was like, it was really funny. So thank you for sharing that. No pressure this time. Next time you're on, we need a story. And it has to be just as good.
I mean, I could tell you stories.
Oh, give us a story. You got one?
I could tell you another dad story because those are the best, like of my dad.
Fire away.
Okay, so obviously I said I had the Mustang when I was 16. Then when I turned 18, I was going to go off to college. My dad's like, all right, we're going to get you a different car. But we didn't know what car I was going to get. Well, I had a buddy who worked at the shop, and he's like, hey, my boss is selling his brand new GT500 Shelby.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh, and it's modified, whatever. Like, I don't even know how much horsepower. So I'm like, hey, Dad, I found the car.
This is the one.
So it happens to be like down the street from our office. So he, goes and checks it out. And he's like, yeah, I like it, whatever. And then like for a week, I'm like, hey, what the car, like it's going to go.
Yeah. What are we doing?
What are we doing?
Right? Yeah.
I don't know how much time went by. And then he comes home one day and he's like, look, and it's like the title of the car. And I was like, no way. This is my car?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, no. You can't handle that horsepower. That's my car. And I was like, what?
No.
You wouldn't even know about that car.
He bought the car from underneath you. That's what we would say back in the day. Like, he bought it? No.
Yeah. I swear.
I love your dad. He is a savage.
Did he give you a shout out at least? Like, I want to thank my daughter, Lissy.
No, of course not.
So no, tell the truth. He actually bought the car,
Swear.
and like you had to see him drive the car. Like he had the car.
it was like one, like a little like fun car.
Yeah, his weekend. But weekend, like yeah.
I mean, it sat in the garage at our warehouse, by the way. Like,
it didn't even make it home.
he drove it like a handful of times. So
That's hilarious.
And then I remember we went to go pick up the registration, and I went with him like out in Richmond or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was a manual. I didn't know how to drive a manual.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, hey, when are you going to teach me how to drive a stick shift?
Yeah.
So we're like on one of those country roads, and he pulls over to the side. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Like
He's
right now?
Come on, you said you wanted to learn. I was like, not on the highway. Like,
Dude, can we start in the parking
lot?
lot? Yes.
So yeah, I learned in a parking lot in the Shelby.
You learned how to drive a stick in the Shelby
Yeah, it was rough.
GT500.
It was rough because
I
that
couldn't
clutch
remember. The
is
clutch
like,
is super heavy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, you can drive anything. Are you proficient at driving a manual now?
Honestly, I mean, it's been so long since I've driven one. I'd probably
Trusty.
like stall out a few times, but like
It comes back.
Yeah, it'll
Like
come
riding a
back.
bike,
But,
But yeah, he was like, it was such a good deal. I couldn't pass up the car.
So what'd you wind up with?
A 335i.
Oh,
It all turned out.
it worked out.
And
It
honestly,
worked
driving
out.
a manual
It
to
worked out.
like Austin, back whatever
That would've been
college.
miserable.
Yeah.
You know what's
Horrible.
funny about that is because that's what I wanted. Like when I was 16, 17.
335,
yeah,
right?
I couldn't get it. Like, because it was expensive for
It
me,
was
you know?
expensive,
So
yeah.
I had the IS-250, but like I was like, man, like the 335.
One
was
day
goals. Like,
I'm going to get the 335.
Yeah, that was like the goal to have that, And I was like,
And it was the car she had to settle for.
Yeah.
Do we see
Isn't
what's
that
happened
crazy?
here?
Like,
Yeah, it's crazy how that happens, right?
It's
It's
so
crazy.
cool, So, no, that's awesome.
It is kind of awesome. It's story time with Lissy. So every time you come on, you can't keep telling
gosh.
stories about your dad, but you got to tell us. You're a good storyteller. That was good. That was good. I cannot believe your dad.
I know.
He
It
is
was
a
unbelievable.
savage.
He is.
I want to meet him one day, actually.
People say I'm kind of like him, so
Well, I'm sure you have it honest because he's like, yeah, you got a V8. You're good. You're good. Like, oh yeah, I bought the car. Wow. Love to see it. Love to see it. Well, again, thank you. I appreciate you guys from coming on. Hopefully, listeners, you enjoyed this. We got to hear a little bit about TX2K. We talk about what's on their vision boards for life, but really, you get to hear a little bit about things that make successful people successful, right? And when I'm touching on success, I'm just talking about financial success, right? What are some good habits and some pitfalls to avoid? We want to add that in the mix because I like talking about that kind of stuff, self-improvement kind of stuff, because I'm interested in it. And people ask me all the time, what do you do? You know what my answer is when people ask me that? Whatever it takes. I think that's the attitude of a successful person, right? Like, what do you do?
It's funny you said that because, like, I usually like to be whatever I want to be in that moment. Sometimes
100%.
I'm an astronaut. Sometimes I'm a president. It's just like, sometimes I'm working for SpaceX. Sometimes
sure.
I think it kind of does open up the door to like just humor and like,
Yes.
like, man, what do I feel like today?
Yeah, what am I today?
Man, dude, I'm an artist, bro. Like, I'm a rapper. Like,
aspiring rapper.
Expiring rap. Yes. I'm an aspiring podcaster,
like,
right?
I got
That's
a
what you
band,
do.
bro. Like, so just kind of it's cool. But I will say for part 3, I think we might need a little bit more time, man. I think we might have to push us up to. I think we can go for 2 hours.
Easy. I got some stuff we're going to talk about next time already, believe it or not. I just wanted to introduce you guys into some of our board conversations, the conversations we have off camera, because I want to mix that in, right? I love cars. That's my lane, but I got other stuff I like to talk about that I think people will be interested in hearing.
100%.
Because it's not all about cars, obviously. It's more to life than cars. Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys. I always say that. You guys know I say it off camera because I really feel that way. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys for listening. Hey, I looked at the analytics. Y'all are really listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us
For
again.
sure.
Yeah, part 2.
For sure.
We'll start
Part 3 is
3
coming soon. If you guys are listening to this, know that it will be uploaded on YouTube too. So if you want to watch, you can see what we look like when we're talking. But we're on every podcast platform. So just look up Plain Jane Cars. If you listen to it on Apple, 5 stars, right? And give me a little review. That helps. Engage with it. Same thing on YouTube if you want to see some other videos. I'm actually going to start doing some other stuff. I got some stuff in the works that I almost bought a car the other day.
Oh, snap.
I have to tell that story. Maybe I'll tell it next time around. Almost doesn't count.
Yeah.
Horseshoes and hand grenades, I think is what people say. Like, hey, you almost. Yeah. It's a good story. That's a good story. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.